Princess Lyra stood at the observation deck of the Etherian diplomatic vessel, her crystalline skin refracting starlight in subtle patterns. The approaching human space station appeared crude and functional compared to the organic architecture of her people's ships. Her attendant, Vex, hovered nearby, his translucent form pulsing with concern. "Your Highness, the human's biological signature is unsettling," Vex whispered, his thoughts resonating through the ship's psychic matrix. Their emotions leak into the surrounding space like radiation. Lyra's own form shimmered with apprehension. The Etherians had avoided physical contact with other species for millennia, their crystalline bodies housing consciousness too delicate for crude matter. Yet here she was, about to meet the humans' chief diplomat face to face. The station's docking procedures were surprisingly gentle. Commander James Harrison waited in the airlock, his dark uniform adorned with minimal insignia. His presence felt like a storm to Lyra's sensitive perception, waves of thought and feeling that crashed against her psychic barriers. "Welcome to Starbase Horizon, Your Highness," Harrison said, bowing slightly. His voice carried unexpected warmth, though he maintained a careful distance. "We're honored to host the first official delegation from the Etherian Empire." Lyra's translator Crystal hummed. "The honor is mutual, Commander. Humanity's rapid advancement has captured our attention." She gestured with graceful, crystalline fingers. "Though I must ask for patience regarding our physical limitations." Harrison's brown eyes crinkled with understanding. "Of course. We've prepared specialized quarters according to your requirements. No physical contact unless absolutely necessary." As they walked through the station's corridors, Lyra studied the human commander. Unlike the chaos she'd expected, his thoughts moved with disciplined precision. His emotional control rivaled some Etherian masters, though occasional sparks of curiosity escaped his mental barriers. The diplomatic quarters design surprised her. Soft light panels mimicked the crystal gardens of her homeworld, and the air carried a familiar ionic charge. "You've studied our environmental preferences extensively," she observed. "We believe understanding leads to trust," Harrison replied. "Though I admit, some of my colleagues found your requirements challenging. They're not used to diplomats who can perceive thoughts." Lyra's form sparkled with amusement. "And you, Commander? Does our ability disturb you?" "Frankly, Your Highness, I find it refreshing. Hard to play politics and your counterpart can sense deception." A crisis interrupted their exchange. Warning lights flashed as the station's AI announced, "Gravitational anomaly detected. All personnel, prepare for emergency protocols." Lyra felt the disturbance before the alarms. Space itself seemed to twist, threatening to shatter her crystalline form. She stumbled, her perfect composure fracturing. Harrison moved instinctively, reaching out to steady her. His hand stopped millimeters from her arm, remembering the prohibition. But in that moment of crisis, Lyra made a decision that would change both their civilizations. She allowed contact. The touch lasted less than a second, but the impact devastated her senses. Human warmth flooded her consciousness, not the chaotic storm she'd feared, but a steady flame of concern, duty, and surprising gentleness. Harrison withdrew immediately, his face showing shock at the crystalline resonance that had passed between them. "I apologize, Your Highness. I forgot myself." Lyra's form pulsed with new patterns, processing the experience. "No apology needed, Commander. I believe we both learned something valuable." She straightened, her crystalline structure adapting to the station's stabilizing gravity. "Perhaps there is more to human touch than our ancient warnings suggested." The incident became a turning point in Etherian-human relations. Word spread through diplomatic channels, the princess who dreaded human touch had found warmth instead of contamination. But as Lyra retired to her quarters that night, she kept one detail private, the lingering sensation of Harrison's concerned thoughts, as structured and beautiful as any crystal garden. Vex noticed her distraction. Your Highness, your pattern suggests significant perturbation. Shall I request a resonance healer? No, Lyra replied, watching distant stars through the station's windows. Sometimes perturbation leads to growth. Her form shimmered with newfound purpose. The old warnings about human touch had focused on their chaotic nature, their overwhelming emotions. None had mentioned their capacity for controlled compassion, for touch guided by respect rather than impulse. Tomorrow would bring formal negotiations, discussions of trade routes and technological exchange. But tonight, Lyra contemplated a different kind of exchange, one that might bridge the vast gulf between crystalline thought and human warmth. The diplomatic chamber hummed with tension as Princess Lyra faced the assembled human delegation. Her crystalline form cast prismatic patterns across the conference table, each shift reflecting her carefully controlled emotions. Commander Harrison sat opposite her, his presence a steady anchor amid the swirling thoughts of his colleagues. The Aetherian Empire proposes a limited exchange, Lyra announced, her translator crystal transforming her resonant thoughts into human speech. We offer our quantum crystalline technology in return for access to your adaptive terraforming systems. Admiral Reeves, a stern-faced woman with silver hair, leaned forward. With respect, Your Highness, limited exchange seems overly cautious. Our civilizations could benefit from fuller cooperation. Lyra sensed the Admiral's underlying frustration, layers of ambition and impatience that threatened to overwhelm her psychic shields. Harrison noticed her discomfort, subtly redirecting the conversation. Perhaps we should discuss specific implementation first, he suggested. The integration of crystalline tech with our existing systems will require careful testing. The meeting proceeded, but Lyra found her attention repeatedly drawn to Harrison's measured contributions. Unlike his colleagues, his thoughts maintained a disciplined structure that seemed almost Aetherian in nature. She wondered if their brief touch had affected him as profoundly as it had affected her. Later, in the station's crystal garden, Lyra sought meditation among familiar resonances. The artificial crystals hummed at frequencies that almost matched her homeworld's harmonies. Almost, but not quite. The garden's frequencies can be adjusted, Harrison's voice interrupted her contemplation. If you'd be willing to share the correct resonance patterns. Lyra turned, her form shimming with surprise and something else, an emotion she hadn't expected to feel among humans. You continue to surprise me, Commander. Few non-Aetherians would notice the discrepancy. I've been studying. He moved closer, but maintained a respectful distance. After our incident, I requested access to public records about your species. Fascinating material, though I suspect much remains restricted. As does much of humanity's true nature, Lyra responded. Your official records speak of chaos, of emotional instability. Yet you. She paused, her crystal matrix pulsing with uncertainty. I what? Harrison asked softly. You demonstrate a capacity for control that rivals our eldest sages. During our touch, I expected to be overwhelmed. Instead, I found. She struggled to translate the concept into human terms. Structure. Purpose. Warmth without burning. Harrison's expression shifted subtly. Perhaps both our species have misconceptions to overcome. He gestured to a nearby crystal formation. These were grown using traditional human crystallography. Beautiful, but static. Your living crystals adapt, grow, think. Different doesn't always mean incompatible. Their conversation was interrupted by Vex's urgent arrival. Your Highness. We've detected anomalous readings from the quantum core. The human engineers, they're attempting to activate a crystalline matrix without proper resonance stabilization. Lyra's form flashed with alarm. They risk shattering the entire crystal network. Commander. I'm already moving, Harrison replied, activating his comm unit. Engineering, cease all crystal matrix testing immediately. Authority code Harrison Alpha 7. They rushed to the engineering lab, Lyra's crystalline form pulsing with increasing distress as they approached. The quantum harmonics were chaotic, threatening to spiral into destructive resonance. Inside, they found a scene of controlled panic. Engineers struggled with controls as the experimental crystal matrix pulsed with unstable energy. Dr. Patel, the lead researcher, looked up with desperate relief. "The containment field is failing," she reported. "We can't shut it down without risking a quantum cascade." Lyra moved forward, her own crystal matrix humming in response to the chaos. "Your technology cannot stabilize this reaction. But perhaps." She turned to Harrison. "Commander, I need your assistance. Your mental discipline might help me establish a control pattern." "Your Highness," Vex protested, "direct contact during resonance manipulation is dangerous, yes. But necessary." Lyra extended her crystalline hand toward Harrison. "Will you trust me, Commander?" Harrison met her gaze steadily. "As you trusted me before." He reached out, their hands connecting in a flash of crystalline light. The sensation was different this time, controlled, purposeful. Lyra channeled her consciousness through their connection, using Harrison's structured thoughts as a framework to impose order on the chaotic crystal matrix. His mind complemented hers in unexpected ways, human intuition working in harmony with Etherian precision. Gradually, the dangerous resonance stabilized. The crystal matrix settled into a sustainable pattern, its glow shifting from angry red to a peaceful blue. When Lyra and Harrison finally separated, both were changed by the experience. "What we just did," Harrison said quietly, "that wasn't in any of the public records about Etherians." "No," Lyra admitted. "Because we believed such cooperation was impossible. That human minds would disrupt our crystalline patterns rather than enhance them." She studied him with new understanding. "We were wrong." As they left engineering, Lyra realized the incident would have profound implications for both their species. The touch barrier had been broken not once but twice now, each time revealing new possibilities. But more than that, she had glimpsed something in Harrison's mind during their connection, a vision of what their civilizations might achieve together, if they dared to reach across the void between them. News of the quantum core incident spread through Starbase Horizon like ripples in a crystal pool. Princess Lyra found herself at the center of increasing scrutiny from both humans and her own people. The successful fusion of Etherian crystal technology with human mental patterns had shattered centuries of assumptions. In her private chambers, Lyra reviewed messages from the Imperial Council. Their crystalline text pulsed with barely concealed concern. "Your actions risk contamination of our pure resonance," one elder warned. "This experiment with human touch must cease." A soft chime announced Commander Harrison's arrival. He entered to find Lyra's form clouded with distress, her usually clear crystal structure showing subtle fracture patterns. "The Council disapproves," he observed, maintaining a careful distance. "They fear change," Lyra replied. "For millennia, we have preserved our purity through isolation. Yet in mere days, their princess has twice joined consciousness with a human." Her form rippled with something like defiance. "And discovered that purity without growth leads to stagnation." Harrison moved to the viewport, watching distant ships drift past. "My superiors have concerns as well. They worry about the implications of crystal-enhanced human consciousness. Some fear we might lose our humanity." "And you?" Lyra asked softly. "What did you feel, during our connection?" Harrison turned, his expression thoughtful. "Clarity. As if all my years of mental discipline finally found their true purpose. But also..." He hesitated. "Something more personal." Before Lyra could respond, alarms blared through the station. Red emergency lights cast harsh shadows across her crystalline form. Harrison's comm unit crackled with urgent reports. "Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace," a tactical officer announced. "Energy signatures match Silence Cartel vessels. They're charging weapons." The Silence Cartel, notorious crystal smugglers who had long sought Etherian technology. Their timing couldn't be coincidence. They must have learned about our breakthrough, Harrison said grimly. The combination of human and Etherian crystal tech would be priceless on the black market. Lyra's form pulsed with determination. We cannot let them acquire this knowledge. The potential for misuse. The station shuddered under the first barrage. Shield alerts screamed through the corridors as Harrison coordinated the defense. But Lyra sensed something worse approaching, a resonance pattern that set her crystal matrix trembling. They're using corrupted crystal technology, she realized with horror. Forced resonance that could shatter every crystal structure on the station. Including you, Harrison finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. How long? Minutes at most. The corruption spreads exponentially. Lyra's form flickered as the hostile resonance grew stronger. There might be a way to counter it, but it would require another joining. Harrison stepped closer. This time under combat conditions, with no preparation. The risk would be extreme, Lyra warned. Such deep connection, while my matrix is already destabilizing, it could break both our minds. Another blast rocked the station. Harrison's comm unit reported shield failures on multiple decks. The corrupted resonance increased, making Lyra's form shiver with increasing distress. Your Highness. Vex burst into the chamber, his transparent form wild with panic. We must evacuate immediately. The Imperial shuttle. No, Lyra interrupted. I will not abandon this station or its people. She turned to Harrison, her crystal structure beginning to show fracture lines. Commander. James. Will you risk this with me? Harrison's response was to cross the space between them and offer his hand. This time, there was no hesitation on either side as their consciousness merged. The connection was different, desperate, deeper than before. Lyra's crystal matrix sang with Harrison's thoughts, his disciplined mind providing an anchor against the corrupted resonance. Together, they reached out through the station's crystal networks, sensing the pattern of destruction. And then they began to change it. Human emotion met Etherian precision in a dance of pure energy. Where the cartel's weapons sought to shatter, they created harmony. Where corruption threatened to spread, they established new patterns of resilience. Harrison's creativity complemented Lyra's technical knowledge, letting them improvise defenses that neither species could have conceived alone. The station's crystals responded, transforming from simple technology into something new, a hybrid network that drew strength from both human and Etherian nature. The cartel's weapons, designed to exploit pure crystal resonance, found themselves fighting an entirely new form of resistance. But the strain on both Princess and Commander was immense. Lyra felt hairline cracks spreading through her matrix as Harrison's consciousness began to fragment under the pressure. Yet neither pulled away. In their shared mental space, barriers crumbled, not just between species, but between hearts. Through the haze of combat and connection, Lyra finally understood what she'd glimpsed in Harrison's mind during their previous joining. Not just respect or diplomatic necessity, but genuine affection. A warmth that had nothing to do with physics and everything to do with the heart. As the cartel ships began to retreat, their weapons useless against the hybrid defense, Lyra and Harrison's connection reached its breaking point. They separated gasping, her crystal form ringing with harmonic stress, his hands trembling from neural feedback. The station is saved, Vex reported, his tone mixing all with concern. But Your Highness, your matrix readings are forever changed, Lyra finished. She looked at Harrison, seeing her own transformation reflected in his eyes. As are we all. In the aftermath of the Silence Cartel's attack, Starbase Horizon buzzed with activity. Emergency repairs continued around the clock, but the focus of attention lay in the medical bay, where Princess Lyra's crystalline form glowed with unprecedented patterns. The Imperial medical team hovered anxiously around their princess, their transparent forms rippling with concern. Her matrix had stabilized, but the changes wrought by repeated human contact were undeniable. Threads of warmth now ran through her crystal structure, pulsing in time with what could only be described as a heartbeat. Commander Harrison stood at a respectful distance, his own medical monitors showing unusual neural patterns. Dr. Patel studied both their readings with fascination. The hybrid resonance you created, she explained, it's not just affecting the station's systems. It's changed you both at a fundamental level. Lyra's form shimmered as she processed this information. The Council will see it as contamination. But it feels. She paused, searching for words to describe the sensation. It feels like evolution. Your Highness, one of the Imperial healers interjected, the Council demands your immediate return to Etheria for purification. They believe prolonged exposure to human resonance has compromised your judgment. Harrison's expression tightened, but he remained silent. This was a matter of Etherian politics, his intervention would only make things worse. And if I refuse? Lyra asked, her crystal tone carrying unexpected steel. Then you risk being declared crystalline corrupt, the healer replied. Unfit for succession. The medical bay fell silent. Even the human staff understood the gravity of the situation. Lyra's position as heir to the Imperial throne hung in the balance. There's more, Dr. Patel said quietly. The hybrid resonance you created? It's spreading. Not just through the station's systems, but through all crystal technology in range. It's like the crystals are evolving on their own, finding a balance between human warmth and Etherian precision. Harrison finally spoke. They can't stop it, can they? Even if they take you back to Etheria. The change has begun, Lyra confirmed. But the Council fears what they don't understand. They would rather maintain our isolation than risk transformation. She rose from the medical bed, her altered form casting new patterns of light across the room. The human medical staff gasped, where her crystal structure had once been purely geometric, it now flowed like liquid starlight. I cannot return, she announced. Not until they understand what we've discovered here. This isn't contamination, it's transcendence. The Imperial healers withdrew in shock, their forms pulsing with disapproval. One remained, Vex, his loyalty to Lyra overriding his cultural programming. The Council will send others, he warned. Those less concerned with your well-being. Harrison stepped forward. Starbase Horizon stands ready to offer asylum, Your Highness. Under interstellar law. That would mean war, Lyra interrupted. My people would see it as human interference in imperial succession. Everything we've achieved here would be lost in the conflict. She moved to the viewport, watching the stars. Her new form reflected not just light, but emotion, hope and fear intertwined in crystalline patterns. Harrison joined her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her transformed matrix. There might be another way, he said softly. The hybrid resonance, it's not just changing technology. It's changing how we think, how we feel. If we could show them. Lyra turned to face him. A demonstration. Not just of technological fusion, but of. She hesitated, her form shimmering with complex emotions. Of what we can become together, Harrison finished. Their eyes met, understanding flowing between them without need for physical contact. The medical monitors beeped insistently. Dr. Patel studied their readings with growing excitement. The resonance patterns, they're synchronized. Even without direct connection, you're harmonizing, Lyra breathed. The warmth I gain from our contact, it's not just changing my form. It's creating a permanent bridge. Harrison smiled. Hard for them to argue against contamination when it produces such beautiful results. But before they could explore this discovery further, alarms blared through the station. Not the harsh warning of external attack, but the deep resonant tone that signaled the arrival of an imperial vessel. "The council sends their answer," Vex announced grimly. "The purification fleet approaches." Lyra's form pulsed with determination. "Then we shall give them a demonstration they cannot ignore." She turned to Harrison. "Commander, I need your help one more time. Not to fight, but to show them what humanity and Etheria can truly become." Harrison nodded, understanding the stakes. This wasn't just about their personal connection anymore, it was about the future of both their species. "Whatever you need, Your Highness." "Lyra," she corrected, her form shimmering with newfound warmth. "After everything we've shared, I think we're beyond titles." The purification fleet drew closer, its crystal ships glowing with ancient power. But on Starbase Horizon, two beings from vastly different species prepared to show the universe that love could bridge even the coldest void between stars. The purification fleet's arrival transformed space around Starbase Horizon into a crystalline aurora. 7 Imperial ships, each a masterpiece of pure Etherian engineering, surrounded the station in perfect geometric formation. Their presence made every crystal on board sing with ancestral resonance. Grand Arbiter Nexus materialized in the station's main diplomatic chamber, his ancient crystal form radiating disapproval. Behind him, a contingent of purifiers stood ready, their transparent bodies designed to cleanse any trace of foreign contamination from Etherian crystal matrices. "Princess Lyra," Nexus intoned, his voice carrying harmonics of authority, "you have strayed far from the pure path. The Council offers one final chance at redemption. Submit to purification, or be declared forever outcast." Lyra stood before them, her transformed body glowing with hybrid resonance. Commander Harrison remained at her side, their proximity creating subtle patterns of light between them. The station's human crew watched from a respectful distance, Dr. Patel's instruments quietly recording everything. "Before you judge, honored Arbiter," Lyra replied, "I ask you to witness what we have discovered. Not contamination, but evolution. Not weakness, but strength." She gestured, and the chamber's crystals responded. But instead of the pure tones of Etherian technology, they sang with a new harmony, human warmth and crystal precision intertwined in impossible beauty. "Abomination," one of the purifiers hissed. "The human influence corrupts." "Watch," Harrison interrupted quietly. He extended his hand toward Lyra, not touching, but close enough for their energies to interact. The effect was immediate. The space between them filled with dancing lights, complex patterns that spoke of consciousness transcending physical form. Their combined resonance spread through the chamber, touching every crystal, every being present. Through this connection, memories flowed. The Silence Cartel's attack. The hybrid defense that saved the station. Moments of understanding between two vastly different species. But more than that, emotions, pure and powerful, that defied Etherian logic yet brought new depth to their crystal songs. Grand Arbiter Nexus stepped forward, his ancient form processing the evidence before him. "This is unexpected. Our teachings speak only of contamination from lesser species, yet you feel it too," Lyra finished. "The potential. We need not remain forever separate, forever fearing touch. Through understanding, through." She glanced at Harrison, her form shimmering with undisguised affection, "Through love, we can become more than we are." The chamber filled with murmurs as the word love resonated through crystal matrices. It was a concept the Etherians had long dismissed as primitive, emotional, beneath their crystalline perfection. "Impossible," a purifier protested. "The princess is clearly compromised. Her matrix must be cleansed." But Nexus raised a hand for silence. His form had begun to change, subtle threads of warmth appearing in his ancient crystal structure. The hybrid resonance had touched something long dormant in Etherian consciousness. "I remember," he said slowly, "in our oldest records, before we retreated into crystal perfection, we too knew warmth. We too understood connection beyond mere resonance." He turned to the purifiers. Perhaps in our quest for purity, we lost something precious. Lyra and Harrison exchanged glances. In that moment, without touching, their consciousness joined more completely than ever before. The chamber's crystals sang with their shared joy, their shared hope for the future. The council must be informed, Nexus announced. This discovery, it changes everything. Princess Lyra, your experiment, while unorthodox, may have opened a door we thought forever closed. The purifiers withdrew, their rigid forms struggling to process this paradigm shift. But among the human crew, smiles broke out. Dar. Patel's instruments recorded unprecedented harmonic patterns as crystal technology throughout the station continued to evolve. There will be resistance, Lyra said quietly to Harrison. Both among my people and yours. Fear of change runs deep. Harrison smiled. Then we'll face it together. After all, isn't that what we've been proving? That the space between us isn't a void to fear, but a place where new wonders can grow. Lyra's form shimmered with joy, casting rainbow patterns across his face. Indeed, my love. Indeed. As the purification fleet departed, carrying news that would shake the foundations of Etherian society, Starbase Horizon glowed with new light. In its corridors, humans and Etherians began to interact with newfound understanding. Crystal technology evolved, incorporating the strength of emotion, the power of connection. And at the heart of it all, a princess who once dreaded human touch and a commander who learned to speak in crystal songs proved that love could bridge the greatest distances, transform the coldest hearts, and unite even the most different of souls. Their story would be told for generations, in words and resonance patterns, as the moment when two civilizations learned that the warmth between them was not a weakness to fear, but a strength to embrace. For in that warmth, they found not an ending, but a beginning, a new dawn for both their peoples, born in the space between a touch and a dream.